This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 258.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba.
What's up, SE Nation? Welcome back to another episode. Hopefully you can tell that I am 90% back versus my video last week, which the only comment that Trevor Spires mentioned was, "What's written on your shirt?" It was written bench with a couple letters hidden by the microphone. Naughty, Trevor. Anyways, great guest today by the name of Paul Pearce. It was a great show. So Paul works with Peter Cohan. He's been working with him for a long time. He just went full time with great demo. We didn't talk too much about that, but I wanted to share that information with you. He has a great career, global leader for sales engineers at multiple stages in his career. And we talk about that. We talk about, like, if someone's starting as a sales engineer today and they look at global sales engineer leader, I mean, it's so far away. It's almost beyond reason that anyone can get there, but everyone started somewhere. So we did discuss that. We basically focus on the first step. Like, if you're an SE, you're within the first year of your career, what should you be doing? And if you want to grow into a leadership role, what's that specific steps that you need to take? So I had a great time talking to Paul. Thank you, Paul, again for coming on. And let's jump into the show and see what Paul has to say. I don't know why I got the urge to say buongiorno, Mr. Pearce. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm not Italian or anything, but I don't know why. I just got that urge. And that's a good way to start a podcast. All right. I'm down, Ramsey. How are you doing, Paul?
I am doing great. Thank you. You?
I am getting over strep throat, so I'm better than I was yesterday, which is good.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope you feel better soon. Wow, that's crazy.
Well, I'm good. Like, it was a rough week, but I've survived it. My kids were sick before me. I just wish they would give me a break between when they were sick and when I got sick. I just needed a couple of days to relax and before I got sick. But that's what happens when you have 3 kids. All right. So, Paul, can you introduce yourself to the folks listening?
Yeah, you bet. Hey, my name is Paul Pearce. I've owned an organization called Great Demo, and I work and partner with Peter Cohan at the Second Derivative. And so I've been doing that for quite some time. I've led 3 global pre-sales organizations, ran sales for another group's human capital management sales and services group. And just a privilege to share some of my experience, I guess, with you and just have a great chat with you, Ramsey. So thanks for having me on board today.
It is definitely my pleasure. And when someone tells me like they were the global SE leader, in my mind, it seems so far away, right? Like, I'm an individual contributor. I'm happy to be an individual contributor. And global SE leader seems something that's unattainable. It's too far. Where did you start off?
Well, I started as a pre-sales consultant back in 1997. And
Okay.
I don't know if I've always wanted to be a leader and a manager, but it happens kind of interestingly in a unique opportunity for me anyway. And so I guess one of the things I would share and to share with anyone that's listening is be ready to act fast, have an when opportunity sometimes knock softly. And so you have to be prepared. And so for me, I was working at a company. I was part of an amazing team in the central US, located in Chicago, Illinois. And a big group of the folks that I'd worked with at a couple different jobs ended up going to a competitor. And I had to make a decision pretty quickly. Was I going to go to the competitor with the team I traveled with for so long, or was I going to steady the course and stay where I was at? Well, I didn't believe in the competitor. And one of the thoughts that I had is, as much as I love my team and my manager was an amazing guy, as long as I was working with that manager, I'd always be reporting to him. I didn't move. And it was interesting because both my VP of sales and the CEO called one morning and they said, the whole team just moved. Are you going with them? And I said, I'm not. And the rest of the conversation kind of set myself up for a leadership position. And I wasn't really even vying for it or aware of what I was doing. But I said, hey, here's the deal. We're going to have a massive impact on sales. We've got these key leads and deals that we're currently working that are now at risk. And here's what I'm going to recommend you do. right? And so I just went through the deals, the list, how we divide and conquer, who takes leadership, the strategy around migrating and protecting accounts and sustaining the region essentially. And while I didn't spend the night before really formulating the plan, I had one and indicated how that was going to impact the business. And it was interesting because about an hour later, the CEO called back and he said, that was an interesting conversation. You're now running the Western region of the US and someone else is going to run the Eastern region of the US. And so it came kind of by happenstance and, we negotiated for a day or so, but I think it was just being very thoughtful about the business, the impact on the business, and being able to articulate to both the VP of sales and the CEO the impact, but having a plan, a decent plan, I guess I was the only one they talked to that said, let's not focus on what's happened. Let's focus on how we're going to move ahead. And so my suggestion and thought would be to anyone, as I mentioned, listening is, think about the impact on the business, how to solve that, how to position yourself, but more importantly, put the business ahead of yourself and figure out what the plan is going to be and have one. And in my case, that was the first time I got promoted, at least to a regional director, before moving into higher levels, later in my career.
So what I heard you do is you were a sales engineer for your company. Like you helped your company solve, like you identified the problem for them. You gave them the risk reward, current state, future state. And you basically did the job. Like you were a sales engineer for your own company where you provided a solution. So, and you provided value.
Yeah, well, I was a pre-sales consultant. The company was called Docent way back in the day. It doesn't exist any longer, but it's, that's what happened when my team left. So that was one of the steps that I took to get there. And I think the lesson from it is just making sure that, you're coming up with a plan and a plan that allows you to really focus on the impact to the business. I think a lot of folks, I want to be a manager because I want to lead people, or I want to make more money, and it's a career path. And I think those are all noble endeavors. I think really when we look at the opportunity and you're able to act on a unique opportunity, but you're focused truly on the impact to the business, then you're acting like a leader to some extent. And so that was the first step for me.
So, all right, let's say someone is an individual contributor. They want to go into leadership. The entire team did not move.
Mm-hmm.
There's an SE leader that left or retired or whatever. I'm just trying to formulate it in a way that, like, what can they do? I mean, sure, focus on the impact, but now they're competing with everybody else on the team, potentially, or someone external. How can they find out what the impact? How can they understand? As sales engineers, we understand other people's businesses more than our own sometimes. So what can we do about that?
I guess I'd give some advice perhaps to folks that are wanting to enhance their career and move into a leadership position. And the first thing I always tell anyone that's ever worked for me is, if you want to be the leader, if you want anything, it doesn't matter if it's being the leader or anything that you want, the first thing you have to do is let someone know, and you have to ask for it. So I've seen people, sit in the back seat of a car with the CEO in the front seat, working because they wanted to show how hard they worked instead of just having a conversation. But I also think that a lot of people work really, really hard, and they think their efforts will be rewarded because they'll be seen and they'll be acknowledged for that. And often cases they're overlooked.
Yeah.
So the first thing I think folks need to do is reach out to their manager or anyone else and just say, hey, it's my goal to move into this particular position, right? And can we start to look at the path and the steps that we need to take for me to move into that, assuming that you would consider me for those types of roles. And I think that helps. That's the first thing that they need to do is, no matter what you want in life, just go ask.
Well, okay, which contradicts your story, because what did you ask to be an SE leader?
I didn't.
No, but it was an extreme circumstance. Doesn't happen all the time. Normal people should ask for it. And I have a story about that. It's not even for. I was talking to an SE friend of mine, and it was promotion time, raise time, whatever. And I asked him, like, hey, are you happy with what you got? And he's like, well, I got some, but I really wanted this promotion to a principal SE role. We're like, did you ask for it? He's like, no. Why didn't you ask for it? Well, I don't want to sound assuming. And what I loved what you just said is, let them know that's what you want and ask for their help on how to get there, right? You're not demanding it. Is that, did I hear you correctly? Is that what you were saying earlier?
Absolutely, yeah. You don't want to demand it, but I think when you say and you come from the perspective of, hey, I'm a team player. I've been here. I work really hard, and I'm just glad to have the conversation. First of all, let you know I'm really interested, and this is a career path. And then secondly, would you be willing to partner with me to help create the steps in the plan or look at unique opportunities that might help develop me for those particular roles? And I think just that conversation alone, there's so many times I've had people on the team I didn't know. And you think they're happy doing what they're doing. There's folks who don't want to be leaders or managers.
Yeah.
And say, I just want to, do what I do. And so it's easy just to assume folks are happy or they don't have those aspirations if you haven't told them.
Yeah.
Obviously, a great manager should ask, and you should be having those conversations as well.
Yeah, and as a manager, I would assume that the manager would ask if what do they want in the next 5 years. Like that's the question I'm asked in every interview and never asked again once I get the job.
That's right. Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're right. I think great leaders are looking at, how to develop folks. For me, one of the biggest joys in my career is when I watch folks move from individual contributors to managers or directors to VPs. And there's a handful of folks that I can name have done that. And to me, as a leader, I think that's your opportunity and your goal, right? Is to be able to develop folks and take them to the next stage in their career. So I celebrate that immensely when I've had those opportunities to do that. So hopefully managers are doing. So if you're listening, you're a manager.
Yeah.
That's your team.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of managers who listen to the show and mostly think like you. Most of the ones who listen to the show think like you, at least. So which is great.
Absolutely. Well, I think, Ramsey, there might be additional steps to add on to that as well.
Okay,
right. So first, you have to ask for what you want, and that goes for everything in life. But then I think there's additional steps. Well, first, when you're starting out, you have to be a master of the product. And so the first thing you need to do before I think you want to move on or add and contribute is take that first year of being in pre-sales in your career or at a company and master your knowledge of the product and more importantly, how it benefits your customers and those customer stories. Then you can move into the art form of how you deliver it and engagement and helping folks remember it and differentiating your company to a far greater level. But I think the biggest thing that I would suggest to folks is be a business person and reduce the amount of time that you're talking about features and technical functions, whether you're in a demo or you're talking to your boss, and then increase the amount of time that you're spending discussing value-related business ideas. So if you're, excelling in your career, in your field, you're going to get the ear and the attention of a lot of leaders. I think you need to come with a plan or some type of knowledge on what you're doing to challenge the status quo to have meaningful impact. And if you're having significant wins, you've got some great stories. But I think that's one thing is continue to look at the business as opposed to the tasks and the problems that you're faced with on a daily basis. The world focuses on problems. I think the folks who are truly exceptional can go beyond the problem to what we at least call in great demos the critical business issue, and everyone's got them. How do we identify that and solve that? And how can you, take your performance on a daily basis and refocus it? Are you doing and closing deals faster? Are your close rates higher than other folks? And if so, what's part of your secret sauce, your habits, your styles, your skills that are allowing you to do that? And then can you recognize a pattern that impacts the business and share that with others? And those are the types of things that'll get attention pretty quickly from leadership as like, this person's got an interesting philosophy or mindset. And it's revolutionizing the way we do business. And those are the folks that usually get considered, or they think, as a leader, you go, wow, okay, that's someone I want to have on my team. Here's an interesting story. First of all, I would say volunteer for special projects. Figure out what your team's working on, what some of the challenges are. I one time had to make a decision between a couple individuals that worked for me. And I thought one was probably slightly better than the other. But the one who survived was working on a special project. And that special project was key to what we were doing. But those special projects give you the attention. It shows that you're going the extra mile, but it also gives you access sometimes to those leadership qualities, metrics, and things as well. So you gotta be awesome at what you do. You got to perfect the art. You got to think as a business person, and then volunteer for those special projects and be proactive in the way you're reaching out and working with your leadership team.
So,
Just maybe 3 or 4 things that come to mind. It'll help folks differentiate themselves as they're working their way into those leadership positions.
So I want to dig into that. Like when you say think like a business person, you're talking about a lot of SEs are taught to think like a business person, like their customers, like adding value to their customers. You're thinking about it more from internally within your own company as well. How can you improve the impact within your company? Did I understand that correctly?
And with your team. As an example, this morning I talked to a group and they do a tremendous number of proof of concepts. And so some of the questions we were talking about and they were formulating as leaders of the teams is how do we reduce the number of POCs and how do we shorten the sales cycle so it can have a stronger impact? And if that's just one example, if you're thinking about those things and you're experiencing those, is stepping back. It's so easy to get pulled into like all the tasks of preparing for the demo, taking care of the customers, et cetera, et cetera. But step back on a Sunday afternoon and think like, how am I measuring what I'm doing? And how can I increase the efficiency of it? Are there ways that I can impact what's most important to the middle of the funnel activities and pre-sales of shortening that sales cycle and increasing win rates?
It sounds a lot like Jocko Willink, what he preaches, like detach and assess. Are you familiar with Jocko Willink?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So and it's interesting. Like I talked to a lot of individual contributors and managers and all that. And it's very difficult. It's more difficult than saying like, oh, just like take a Sunday and study. Sometimes it's very difficult to actually step back and look at what's going on. I was talking to someone today who said, like, I have to shift between tasks because I need to follow up with people around 3 times a day to make sure that things are not dropped. Well, one, you have an issue. Why do you have to follow up 3 times? And the second thing is, if you know you're going to follow up 3 times and you're worried about like switching between tasks, why don't you just write up 3 emails in the morning and then send one periodically? And for me, it's so easy to say that because I'm not in it. But him being in it, like sometimes you just need to talk to someone. I guess that's like if you can't detach on your own, find a detached partner. I don't know if that works, but it's just a thought that popped in my head.
Yeah, I like it. It's almost like that paradigm shift of, what's my manager and what are the leadership teams working on? Ask those questions, by the way. Like, you boss, what are you working on? What are you doing? What's some of the biggest challenges and struggles that you're having? And some of them are likely obvious, but it's easy for an individual contributor to think their boss isn't doing a whole lot. I used to think that.
Well,
and you're like, you do all day anyway, but I can guarantee you they're working.
Yeah. Well, it's like salespeople. It's like salespeople. I haven't met an SE who doesn't think they can do the job better than a salesperson because
no doubt.
They just sit in a meeting.
Salespeople only do P&L, pricing and marketing, right?
Yeah.
I'm carrying it back. I'm telling you, that's not the case.
Something else that you said earlier was like figure some information off and then share it with the team. And a lot of individual contributors have a hard time sharing, not because like they don't want to share or they're selfish. It's just because they're so attached to what they're doing and they're busy. And the reason they're high performance is because they keep doing stuff all the time that they forget to share with the rest of the team and bringing the rest of the team up. So I like that you said that.
Yeah. It reminded me of a gal I used to work with and I really love and respect. I'll give her a shout out. Her name's Sumi Yorte from Lucian. And Sumi, after we taught Great Demo one time, actually came out with, it was kind of a grassroots efforts that she put together. And she just called the group together about once or twice a month and had her own discussion on how to implement Great Demo methodology attributes successfully. And she just ran it. And to me, it was such a sign of leadership, an example of just being awesome and thinking about like, how do we take this to the next level as an organization? And that was a grassroots efforts that she led. I remember going back numerous times and just saying, share with me what you did, because that was super impressive. So those are the types of things, I'm using that as an example from what I was at a Lucian and in Great Demo, but those things may exist for you as well. There's a new method, a new style. Start pulling the team together and helping implement that and pull best practices together as an example.
So one pushback I get when I suggest that to some people is that, well, I did that once and nobody showed up. So my question to you, like, if you get that pushback, I know what I say, but I want to hear what you say because it's probably better. What do you tell someone who comes back with that?
I would ask, well, did you market it before you did it? Did you reach out and get some buy-in from other folks? Did they also feel that there was a need in doing that? I mean, if you created it in a vacuum and pushed it out and no one showed up, probably wasn't something that was the best for the team, or they didn't see value in it.
You didn't solve a problem.
Yeah, it didn't solve the problem they felt that they had. And, in this case, that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes managers will make a little recommendation. So once again, if you're listening for opportunity, you can certainly do that. And of course, she had reached out and asked if it made sense, and I thought it was brilliant. I still look back at the list she created when customers ask me, "What should I do after training?"
Yeah, yeah. So one of my clients right now is actually going out there and doing internal podcasts within his company, and then sharing it with everybody else. Right. So they're editing and recording some pieces of wisdom and sharing it with the rest of the team. So, if one way doesn't work, try something else.
Some intelligence is just creating your own podcast so you can meet amazing people and learn from industry experts. I don't know who did that, but whoever did was amazing. I mean, it's a brilliant concept.
Yeah,
I'm talking about you, Ramsey, and the whole creation of your podcast.
I'm not used to getting compliments, so I was confused. It's like somebody else did that. Is better.
That is the most intelligent trick I've ever heard. When you told me that's the reason you started the podcast, I was like, I'm total respect.
Awesome. It's worked so far. 250 views or something. So from a personal perspective, what made you enjoy, once you became an SE leader, what made you enjoy that role?
I think developing each individual to the best of their opportunity. I mean, just the best of our ability, and looking at it from like, how do you make them the best pre-sales consultant, and then how do you take them to develop their career in the way that they want to. And I absolutely just love that. And a lot of times I would hire folks and I would ask that same question, like, where do you envision yourself being in 5 years? And I would say, well, give me a year or two as an SE, and I'll absolutely, partner with you to help you get to those particular levels. And then you get to celebrate just the migration of someone's talent and their career and so forth. That to me is the best part of being a leader and a manager. And then anytime, of course, we could increase the efficiency of the team and have significant business wins, that's nice too. Increasing win rates and, impacting operations is a ton of fun, especially when you bring the team together to do it. For me.
It's so funny when you said, give me a year or two and I'll help you achieve your goals. I was on an interview recently, internal, and the hiring manager said, I need a 3-year commitment from you. I'm like, no. I've never worked on a team for less than 4 years, right? I've always worked for one company for 4 years, 5 years. I don't mind sticking around. But when someone asks me for a commitment and they don't offer anything in return, like you said, stick around with me for 2 years and I will help you achieve your goals. Like, that's a good reason. It's like, but I need a 3-year commitment from you. Like, why? What happened? Okay, are you going to give me a commitment if something happens that I'm not going to get laid off first because I'm the last one on the team?
I love that.
Right? Like, what is your commitment to me if I'm going to give you a 3-year commitment? I just found that interesting.
Yeah, I love that. So you slid the employment contract across the desk, hopefully, and said sign right there, and you got yourself a 3-year contract commitment. Yeah,
I mean, yeah. So
I always positioned it as, man, we sell very complex products. The ones that I've sold are. It's going to take a year to really understand it, master, doing what we're doing, understanding the customer. And then the next year, you're going to be really productive. That's the year you get a chance to really go to club and advance, and you get to master the art of what you're doing.
Yep.
And if we do that together, you're going to be a lot better. That's what I'm hoping you'll commit. To some extent, it's not a true commitment, but and as we're doing that, we're going to consider, all the other things you do from a development perspective. So I wouldn't say you get something at the end of 2 years.
Yeah.
I would say it's part of that partnership that you have with your employees.
Yeah, I haven't met a hiring manager who wants an individual to leave after 2 to 3 years. Like, it's normal. We want to hire people for a long run unless they're really bad.
Exactly.
But if you're asking for a commitment, like commitment, like I need you to promise me, pinky swear, then it gets a little bit tough because I don't know what's going to happen in my life, right? Like,
Right.
so it's just, it was an interesting, interesting demand that he offered me, and it's like, no, that was the actual response on the call. Like, no, what are you talking about?
Good for you.
We're still friends. So, all right. So you became a SE leader. Did you have aspirations to move up higher to become like, again, it seems so far away, even from an SE leader, depending on how many levels there are. Did you have any aspirations to get into global leadership? What was the next step?
I did. I've always wanted to, continue to grow my leadership capacity. And I remember when I was in my young career, I was, I don't know, I did some military, so I came into the career field a little bit late. I was probably 26 or 27. And I remember just working so hard as an SC, traveling like crazy. I didn't see the path. And I thought, how will I ever get to this level of income? How will I ever get to this spot in my career? And I watched a mentor of mine who was there, and I thought, I'll never be able to do that. And it was amazing within just a couple of years of how everything had changed. I reached the goals, or at least the bar that person, I guess the success that person's had, that was my bar, and that was what I wanted to emulate. And I got there faster. So I think, when you're highly dedicated, you're working and you're doing some of these things, the special projects, the reaching out, having the communication, networking within your organization, it's amazing how things and how quickly things can change and happen. A merger and acquisition that you weren't prepared, immediate opportunity, because there's a tremendous amount of change. So we start to consider all those things that happen, have happened to many of us, and how quickly things can change and what opportunity that creates for each individual.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, like, even though there might not be an opportunity today, you never know what could happen tomorrow.
It happened.
And work as if.
Yeah. For me, it was a handful of 5 or 6 folks that always jumped ship or moved jobs at the same time. And I've been with them on some of those moves previously. That happened so fast. The company didn't expect it and created an opportunity. And although I hadn't planned it, I came with, essentially. And that was a major shift in opportunity for me. And from there, I was able then to compete for higher level positions and be awarded those.
This is going to be a weird question. Any regrets for moving up the ranks?
Not for moving up the ranks. I've had regrets in my career of things that I wish I could have done differently, or things that I've learned along the way I wish I would have learned faster. Including, some of my first moves as being a manager and so forth. I think there's things I would change. No major regrets, I guess. But
yeah, you were talking earlier, like, it needs a year for an SE to become a good SE, to learn the product, and then, another year to perfect the craft, right?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to become a good SE manager?
I don't know if I ever was one. we should ask people how to work for me. I think,
Well, okay, let me put it to you this way. If I were to talk to one of your employees, what would they say about you as an SE manager?
I've had a lot of folks say that I've had feedback that I was some of the best managers that folks had ever had, because I tried to look at each individual individually and see what their personal motivations and aspirations were. And especially younger in my career, I probably did that even better as a manager than I did as a global VP, because I really wanted to partner with folks. And I'm pretty proud of that. And some of the feedback I've had is that, I did that. So I think I was a good manager. I think, taking and looking at things from a business perspective as well were things that were a success for me. We used to track all types of detail, how much time we were spending on different activities and RFPs and travel and demos and how many number of demos and so forth. But it was amazing. Like, everyone screamed about that. We hate doing it. We hate filling out your status reports. I took those and we aggregated things. But when it came time to make business decisions and go and get additional help or get additional funding, man, we had that stuff. And so many times I'd say, like, look, our average work week for an SE is now at 52 hours. And I can prove it. And here's the RFPs, and, had everything that I needed. But I could take those statistics to leadership and justify and validate everything that we truly needed. on the team or to impact the business, so that I was trying to manage to the best of our ability the quality of life for our team, but the productivity that we had. Those are things that I was really proud about and having as well. And when I work and consult with companies, I love seeing what their KPIs are, what they're tracking. And even at the individual level, if you're trying to get to that leadership position, what do you have as data validation essentially to support any claims that you might bring to leadership? So think about that as well. Track some of your own stats and your own KPIs. Run your job as an SC like a business.
That's very interesting.
What do you think of that, Ramsey? I don't know if I answered your question specifically.
Well, I asked you a couple of different questions. I did a bad job asking question because I asked two. So you answered one of them, which was, it's good enough for me. But now I have way too much to think about. So I tell people, like, we're our own business, and every year we have to have like how companies, they need 10% growth. Most individuals don't think about their income or their learning or as I need 10% growth. They just like whatever happens, or they move jobs. But I guess that's one thing they could do is like get KPIs about yourself and track it. And now now you just gave me some more homework.
Yeah. Well, that which we track and improve, right?
Yeah. So what are the KPIs that you track today for yourself?
Well, for me running operations for Great Demo, man, I'm always tracking lead generation. I'm tracking revenue, of course. I like to track the number of students that we're actually impacting. For me, the biggest motivator in doing what I do is just trying to, once again, take people's careers to the next level. And so I'm always just tracking the number of folks that we basically get to influence and try to maximize that so that we have a bigger impact on the pre-sales community. Because apparently, things that I've learned through Great Demo have been significant to my career and the ability to grow and help the organizations I partner with essentially move to the next level. Okay. Just a quick example, when we were at Ellucian, we implemented Great Demo. The first year that we did that, we reduced the number of demos that we did to win deals by 20%. So it was huge. We had about 80 folks on the team, 20%, and the 80 is like 16. So an equivalence of 16 pre-sales consultants now doing demos for new opportunities as opposed to the repetitive cycles. And then we increased our win rate by 50% on one of our biggest ERPs that year as well. So by learning what we need to do, how we need to communicate it, how to tell the perfect story, how to dramatically increase engagement and retention. So when we can do those things and share those things, not only we get to influence and impact the lives of pre-sales individuals, but have dramatic impact on the success of the business, which means more people are going to club, they're happy in their job, they're making more money so they can get that 10% year-over-year growth, whatever it happens to be. But those are the things I think about tracking for my business. And then the things I like to partner with customers on to see like what KPIs they want to track as part of the enablement for their organization.
So I'm going back. You were the VP of head of sales engineering at Ellucian, right? It wasn't like you came in with a demo. So, all right. So here's a few questions that I have. Let's start with the first one. A lot of SEs complain that their voices are not heard. They don't have a spot on the table. Right? How does an SE leader manage to get their voices heard within the organization to begin with, so that they can implement Great Demo, for example?
Well, I think you have to have a methodology to some extent, and within that methodology, you can track the success. So one of the things that we did at Ellucian is after we implemented Great Demo, we created something called the 5 imperatives, or I call it the 5 Ds. There may be 6 if you're doing proof of concepts, but first of all, do you have discovery, and do you have what you need in discovery? Are you prepared to do the demo? So I call it demo prep, and then delivery of your demo, documentation, and then the debrief. And essentially within that paradigm of those 5 Ds or the 5 imperatives, identifying what you need, what you have, and what you don't have, so that you've got basically a deep level of intelligence on middle of the funnel activities within your deal. And when we had that, and we just give it a green light, yellow light, or red light for each one of those 5 Ds, we could say, well, if it's yellow or if it's red and we don't have what we want or need, for example, we haven't had effective discovery in discovery we didn't learn these very key elements of doing a great demo, then we knew there was risk. And so we documented the risk and then meet as a team on what are the best next steps. And what we found is, we would go back to sales leadership and we'd say, here's some of the challenges that we're finding within this deal. These are significant risks. Here's the key actions that we need to take. And if we do that, we know we're going to move to the green. And when we get to green, win rates go up significantly. So by having that, we were always armed on our most strategic deals of where it was at. And I used to joke with our VP of sales or CRO that I wanted more than just the win probability on the sales forecast report, which is, sales feels it's a 70% probability. I said I actually wanted the SC score or pre-sales score, or perhaps the 5 imperative score that actually had a scoring metric that said for the middle of the funnel activities, maybe we're only at a 30%. And when that 30% doesn't correlate with the sales probability, right, we need to have much more meaningful conversations. And it's another litmus test. I didn't get it on the forecast before I left to come over and work stronger on Great Demo. But what we found, Ramsey, was we were having entirely different conversations with sales and sales leadership, much to the state that sometimes sales reps would call and say, before my forecast or before we get on this forecast call, what does your 5 imperatives say? What risk do I have? And what are you going to call me out for, essentially, on this call? And they go, no, we're doing great. And you go, as a matter of fact, here's some key risks and here's the action plan that we need to take that. And that changes the game, but it also trains your account executives on what they need to be doing because they don't always know. They're so excited to get to the demo, but we don't always teach account execs on how to perfect the information set that we need to deliver a great demo.
Yeah.
So those are the things that elevated the conversation immensely, was just having those metrics and the measurements and running it like a business so we could take our business metrics back to the executive team. We had a lot of conversations at the leadership level about those things.
So you mentioned that you were on forecasting calls, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
A lot of SE managers and leaders are not part of the forecasting call to begin with.
Well, that's a shame.
So what can they? Why is it a shame? I think you already answered that, but let's dig into that a little bit deeper. And what can they do to get on these calls?
Well, I think having those metrics certainly, and if they're not on the calls, I'm just really surprised with that. I've always been on sales forecasting calls as a pre-sales leader, on the regional calls as a regional leader, definitely on the national or global calls as a global leader. And the things that you need to actually be able to get on those calls is add value. So if you're an SE manager or leader and you're on those calls and you aren't talking and you're just listening, chances are you're not adding value and you're easily forgotten when those calls are scheduled. But if you actually come with your own statistics and use something like we had used, the 5 imperatives, all of a sudden you've got a different set of intelligence that sales leadership doesn't often have. So it drives a stronger relationship with sales and sales leadership, but it also gets you a seat at the table because you've got those strategic deal insights that are needed. Here's just a perspective that I think a lot of young pre-sales folks have, and that's that they work for sales. And I want to say, it's almost, actually a buddy of mine, Art Fromm, said the other day, he said it's like a 51-49, where he said actually it's 75 and 75%. And that overlapping 25% in the middle is where you have to have some negotiation. But as an SC, you have to own your business, and you should own the middle of the funnel activities, which is those 5 Ds that I talked about. And so you also need to then be a leader in the sense of what you need to do your demos correctly. So if you're just completely reactionary, your schedule's booked solid, and you're jumping from demo to demo, and you're doing pretty much the exact same demo every time, I'm going to suggest that you're failing to perform your job to the level that you need. You won't get that manager position, and you're probably not going to get a seat at the table. Well, but when you can reverse that, that's where the change comes.
If you're doing the same demo, you're replaced by a video. Just record it once and go home. Really?
Yeah, you're right.
So, you're right. And like, if an SE manager cannot be on is not invited to the funnel reviews, they can always just ask, right?
Yeah, that goes back to point number one, ask for it, but I would almost demand it, would just say, hey, you need to be on that. But then when you're
Yeah,
doing that, bring the value, bring the statistics, bring the reports as well.
yeah,
And when starting to talk about those key deals, have a voice, which is, here's the key risks that we've identified in this deal. Here's the action items that we're going to suggest. We think this could impact the close date. Perhaps we haven't identified the value realization event or the true value, which puts the deal at risk. And if you're having really just 4 or 5 key pieces of information on those deals for your middle of the funnel activities, you'll get a CV, and they'll be very interested in what you feel you need to be able to take that deal to a higher probability and shorten the sales cycle. And no VP of sales is going to ignore that information when it's legitimate and it's methodically presented. And
the reason I said ask versus demand is because I don't think a single sales director would say no for an SE manager to be on the call. Like, if there is one, I've never met them. Just, I don't know. Should SEs, individual contributors, be on the funnel review with if they're tied to one salesperson or 2 salespeople?
It certainly doesn't hurt. I think maybe on the regional level, sitting in, but I'd also want to make sure that if they had the right methodology, they're communicating that very effectively with their sales counterparts, or running it up for their leader to be able to present those things as well. So I'd say yes and no. I mean, the challenge you also find is that all of a sudden you've got a call, you're trying to go over forecast calls, and on the forecast calls, the caveat needs to be there's actually a portion in those forecast calls where you're talking about strategy and risk, as opposed to what's the close date and what's the percentage. The challenge becomes those calls become enormous, and then you've just got a productivity issue.
Right. Okay. So people can make their own decisions if they have too many deals or not. Okay. Paul, we're about to jump to the not so fire round. Was there any question? Yeah. Was there a question you wanted me to ask that I did not?
No, I don't think so. I just had one additional thought, which is, I think the pre-sales community's got a very unique ability to be the center of the organization. We reach and touch probably as many organizations in our companies as anyone. So you're connected to services, support, sales, product management. So be the conduit. And if you want to enhance your leadership, be the conduit between all those. Present feature enhancements, requests to product, but correlate it with how it's impacting sales. As an example, use situation slides and key pieces of information to present what you have. And when you're also networking broader within the organization and have a stronger influence into the success of other organizations, obviously that increases your leadership viability and potential. So I'd add that before we jump to the fire round of things for folks to consider if they want to take that seat position.
Thank you for adding that. Quick clarification. It's the not so fire round. So we take our time answering. It's pretty much the same thing that we've been doing so far, but it's the same 4 questions I've asked every guest, or almost every guest. We can do it in fire round succession, or we can do it in a calm, easy, laid back manner.
I'll follow your lead. This will be good. All right, what do you got?
So the question number 1 is, what do you love about sales engineering, or like whatever career stop you've had throughout your career? Like, what do you love about being in the pre-sales organization?
I was served in the 183rd Fighter Wing in Springfield, Illinois, at the Air National Guard years ago in the early 90s, and I've often thought that pre-sales engineering is kind of like being a fighter pilot, right? You go to the conference room, you get your briefing, or you go to ops and you get your briefing. Here's the deal, here's the demo. This is exactly what the customer needs. It's never enough information, which would be a little bit different, but and then we jump in our F-16s or our fighter planes, right? It is full throttle, afterburners on. We're screaming to the customer where we provide and we present to the demo. Let's say that's essentially the equivalent of dropping our ordinances from that F-16, right? Let's say we did it, the customer, we got the technical win, and then once again, it's afterburners on and we're getting the hell out of there, where we're going to go out and have a really nice meal. We'll still be wearing our jumpsuits, so everyone knows how cool we are. And then we go on to the next mission, essentially the next deal. We have to clean it up. That's services job, or implement it, right? We're not the ground troops that are implementing. So what I love about pre-sales is, man, we get qualified leads. Sales and marketing's done an amazing job. And man, we just get buzz out there, be the heroes, do these amazing demos that focus on value and solve customers' critical business issues. And then we're out to the next one, to the next hotel, conference room, an amazing meal on company expense. But yet we also get to identify the value, the customer success. We still engage at user group conference to see how this has evolved. To me, it's like all the glory without all the pain. And we've got some of the biggest influences, and usually are part of the biggest organizations in companies. And to me, it's just a wonderful place to be. We're highly rewarded, highly regarded, and it's a ton of fun. I've carried a bag. I've done some services work, and I love pre-sales. I left being a head of sales for a group at GP Strategies, essentially, to come back and run pre-sales again, because I think it's the best job in the company. So I love it. And I've always just been a strong proponent of the field and the craft and trying to advance that, through great demo.
I'm currently carrying the bag right now. Like they shifted me out of sales engineering into sales, and
Hey, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I'm trying to find my way back.
Hey, here's one thing that I'll throw this in as a side note. And you may appreciate this now that you're carrying a bag, which is awesome, because now you're getting a more well-rounded view into that entire sales cycle, which I think is also giving you stronger leadership attributes later in your career. So that's awesome. One of the things I always tell young pre-sales consultants is this: when you get a deal, the first thing you need to say to anyone in sales is, first of all, thank you and congratulations. I don't want to hear this nonsense of, I don't have enough information, discovery sucks. Bring that conversation later. But first of all, I mean, as you know, Ramsey, you've been cold calling, you've done market and lead development, you've been to trade shows, you've been working with marketing and business development. And sometimes these sales cycle, I mean, we're working for 6 months, and all of a sudden a customer says they want a demo. And as an account exec, you're like, holy cow, this is fantastic. I'm so excited. I can't wait to call my pre-sales team. And then we rain on their parade and we go, you did a horrible job. You didn't get us what we need. Here's what I suggest real quick, is just say congratulations, and you came to the right place. Like, let's meet about the opportunity. Let's talk about things that we may need so we can do effective demo prep. And I'm going to rock this demo for you. Let's partner on this and be a leader from that perspective instead of other. I don't know if you've ever seen that or if you agree, Ramsey. I'm curious what you're seeing now that you're carrying a bag, but it gives you a stronger appreciation for the nonsense that account executives put up with before they bring us the love,
So I was talking to someone, and they were complaining about salespeople. Or they're sitting in a demo and not saying a word. They're just off camera doing nothing. I mean, sure. I mean, salespeople can do a better job when their SE is doing a demo to support their SE. But that's a conversation to have between the two. Like, if the SE never asks for it, the salesperson's never going to think about it. They have a million emails to it. The problem is SEs don't see what salespeople do the majority of the time. Right? A lot of our work is in front of customers. We're doing all this demo, and the salesperson's with us, and they're silent because they can't do much. But there's so much behind the scenes that takes place that salespeople have to do. They have to do the funnel review with their management, who are crapping on them. It's like, oh, you didn't close enough, or even though the economy is bad, you didn't close that deal. You said you're going to close that deal. Or, the customer, they said yes, and the last second, now it went to procurement, and procurement's saying no because they don't have budget for it or whatever. There's a lot of things that SEs don't see salespeople do. And salespeople, like, their job is not really glamorous. It's basically just taking crap from other people. That's how I see it right now.
Herding cats inside the organization to get something done.
Yeah, I think SEs, our job is easy. It's the fun part of the sales process. Whereas the salespeople have the other ends of, there could be some fun parts, but there's also a lot of crap that they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Agreed. Yeah.
All right. That's why I call it the not so firearm. We're still on question 1. Question 2: what would you consider is your superpower?
I guess if I had to pick one, I think getting to the heart of the matter, or getting to the problem and figuring out what's really, really needed. In Great Demo, we talk about, the value hides behind the problem and the pain. And you got to figure out how to get beyond problems and the pain that the customer's having, which is where we often stop,
Yep.
into getting to what we call a critical business issue. I think I've just been really good at times looking past what some of the challenges are and finding what's really important, what a customer's really saying, what a customer really needs, or what an employee really needs or wants. So I guess driving to the impact would be one of the things I think it's always helped me in my career and when working with folks, is what's the bigger picture and focusing on that. I don't know if that's much of a superpower. I wish I had something, better, like ability to read minds or something like that, but
I think we all wish that. Although sometimes the second guesses when
maybe we wouldn't want that.
if I get to read my wife's mind, I think I'll get lost in that maze. So I'm okay.
Right.
I'm okay with that. So other than question number 3, other than Great Demo and Doing Discovery, these are 2 books that Peter Cohan wrote.
Yeah.
Is there a resource you would recommend for SEs who are looking to move up the ranks to figure out if they're going to be good at it or how to do the job?
There's a lot of really, really good books, and there's some new ones out there as well. So, I mean, you can go back to the classics, A Great Demo, and John Kerr's book. All his books are really good, and those are some classics. I think, I've really been impressed with the Pre-Sales Collective in the community for bringing the community and sharing some information. I think as long as you're out there and you're looking at those types of resources and getting a continually fresh perspective on the role. And then I love looking at just sales analysis and reports and trends within sales as well. And I think if you want to start to look at like creating and generating creative ideas to advance your career into leadership, start looking at other things, where it's Gartner reports, or there's lists of many things that people can start looking at. And what are the trends that we're seeing, whether it's demographics or demonstration best practices? I would argue a lot of things are actually starting to become outdated. And then by looking at some of the newer practices, we can alter some of those outdated methodologies a bit to improve them just a bit. So I guess those are a couple things I'd look at.
No,
If
these
there's
are
any
great.
book that jumps out, there's a lot of great ones out right now.
These are great. No one's ever said Gartner reports in the past, so it's
I look at them all the time. And that's actually one of the things. Well, I looked at the Challenger sale. I looked at value selling components, which was more of a sales methodology. Some of the private equity firms use, and it made me realize that some of the standards that we've used to do demos really have been outdated, and they're not taking into consideration some of the best practices. And so those are unique thoughts that if people are starting to think about and how to apply what we're learning from sales methodology and sales analysis, we can improve demonstrations.
You know what? You can't say that in the last 5 minutes of a podcast, because now I have a million questions. We'll do another session then.
Okay.
We'll talk about new trends and demos and outdated trends and all that, because now
right.
my juice is going. All right, last question of the not so fire round. Is there a habit you're working on today to improve in your personal or professional life?
Yeah, there's a habit. I don't know if it's a habit. I think I'm trying to form habits. And I would say the thing that I'm continuing to work on all the time is my level of discipline. Because I think discipline drives the habits that we form. And so I'll be honest, I don't work out as much as I'd like to. I know I should. My blood pressure is a little bit high at times. And I think, man, I need to get to the gym more often. And then I don't go because I end up doing something else. And I think I need to have stronger discipline. And so I'm just constantly saying, like, if I don't achieve something in my life that I want to achieve, I immediately come back and say, Paul, you're not disciplined enough in that particular area. And when we've got significant amounts of discipline, we can essentially form habits. I don't have the habit of going to the gym every morning like I'd like. So to me, it's something I've always focused on, is what do I need to be more disciplined about in life to achieve the goals that I want for myself. So I don't know if that's a habit, maybe just habitually feeling undisciplined.
That's perfectly fine. I tell people, like, if you don't understand, like, if you don't have an answer to that question, answer the next best thing. So that's the next best thing you're working on your
Yeah,
business.
in politics, I'll just answer what I wish you would have asked, right? Instead
Yeah.
of what you
Well, yeah, it was actually, we were doing that. I was helping someone through an interview, and we were doing a mock interview, and I asked them a question. They didn't have an answer to it, and they went around for like, now 30 seconds to give me a separate answer. I'm like, just answer that to begin with, right? And say, like, I don't have exactly what you're asking for, but I have this. I mean, it's fine. I mean, it works. All right, Paul, we're at the end of our show. If our audience, how can our audience, if our audience can do one thing to help you, what would that be?
I want to help them. So any chance you want to chat or reach out, talk about anything that we've talked about today, if you'd like to learn more about Great Demo, go to our website, subscribe to the newsletter. Peter's putting out content. I'm putting out content constantly. Peter's writing a new book. First of all, so let me announce that. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell anyone that, but the Great Demo version 3 will be out towards the end of the year, if not sooner. But one of the things that Peter's always said, like, if you want the next edition of the book, go to the website. We kick out white papers like about weekly. I could put 6 or 7 out this year myself. So go to greatdemo.com. If you want to subscribe to the newsletter, great. If you want some awesome resources, hit that up. And then if you'd like to chat with me, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can find my profile on the Great Demo website as well. And just love to figure out how I can help you or provide any examples or more horrible stories or whatever it is, so that you can achieve, your goals and objectives in pre-sales. And that would be my pleasure and opportunity, I guess.
That's great, Paul. I'll leave a link to your LinkedIn in the show notes as well. And I like the Great Demo, the articles there. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that.
Hey, my pleasure. It's fun chatting with you,
Likewise.
Ramsey, and I'll look forward to doing it again sometime.
And that's the end of the show. Let me know what you guys thought. What are your aspirations? I am very curious to hear what other SEs think they want to do in 3 to 5 to 10 years. And what are you going to do to actually achieve that? Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what was helpful today. Paul has an open invitation to come back on the show. So if you have any questions you want me to ask, let me know. So that's just it. I'll leave it at that. With that, I'm signing off.